5 evening affirmations to release stress and sleep in peace. Buddhist wisdom. What if I told you that the way you end your day tonight could decide how your tomorrow begins? Think about it. How many nights have you closed your eyes only to find yourself trapped in the same worries, regrets, or restless thoughts? You turn from side to side, unable to escape your own mind. And yet on other nights when calmness finds you, your sleep feels like healing itself, a gentle medicine for the soul. This is not coincidence. It is wisdom as old as time. In Buddhist philosophy, the state of mind you carry into the night is the same state that will greet you at dawn. And that means tonight is more powerful than you think. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 evening affirmations, 5 simple, timeless truths that can release your stress, ease your heart, and guide you into the deepest rest you've had in years. But listen carefully. These are not empty phrases. Each affirmation is a key, a lantern that lights the path away from anxiety, regret, and sleeplessness, toward clarity, peace, and renewal. If you are tired of carrying the burdens of your day into the night, if you are ready to finally rest in peace of mind, then I invite you to stay with me. Watch this video until the very end, because each step builds upon the last, and missing even one could mean losing the full effect of this practice. And before we begin, do me a favor. If you find even one thought tonight that brings you comfort, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and share it with someone who needs rest as much as you do. This is more than just a video, it's a community of people choosing peace over chaos night after night. So find a quiet place. Let your shoulders drop. Feel the weight of the day start to loosen. This may be the most important 10 minutes you'll give yourself today. Now, let's begin. Affirmation 1. I let go of what I cannot change. When night falls, the world begins to soften. The sky loses its color, the noises of the day fade, and we find ourselves standing at the edge of silence. It is in these quiet hours, when the body longs for rest, that the mind often grows most restless. The day is technically over, yet in our thoughts it is still alive. Unfinished conversations replaying, mistakes echoing, regrets pulling at us with invisible strings. We carry these burdens into our beds, as if by holding them tightly we might somehow alter them. But the truth, a truth taught by the Buddha and confirmed by every weary heart that has ever tried to cling to yesterday, is simple. What is past is gone. To carry it into the night is to suffer twice, once when the moment occurred and again when we refuse to release it. Letting go is one of the deepest medicines of the human spirit. It is also one of the hardest. We are taught from childhood to hold on, to memories, to people, to achievements, to failures. We are told that to let go is to lose. Yet the Dharma shows us another way. To let go is not to lose, it is to be free. The Buddha once compared our attachments to a burning torch we clutch with both hands. The tighter we hold, the more it burns us. Releasing the torch does not mean darkness, it means relief. Imagine this. You are standing beside a river at dusk. The air is cool, the water flowing gently. In your hands you carry a heavy stone, rough and awkward. This stone is today, every task left undone, every word you wish had been kinder, every mistake you replay in your mind. Feel its weight, the way it presses against your palms. Now breathe in slowly, and as you exhale, let the stone fall into the river. Watch the ripples carry it downstream until it disappears from sight. Notice how light your hands feel when they are empty. That is the practice of letting go. It is not denial, not escape. It is choosing to release what can no longer be changed so that peace can take its place. There is an old Zen parable that speaks to this truth. Two monks were traveling on a long journey. Along their path, they came across a woman who was struggling to cross a muddy stream. Without hesitation, one monk lifted her up, carried her across the water, and set her down gently on the other side. They continued walking. Hours later, the second monk, still disturbed, said, "Brother, why did you carry her? We monks are not supposed to touch women." The first monk simply replied, "I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story has lived for centuries because it mirrors our own lives so perfectly. How often do we carry the woman in our minds? How often do we hold on to situations, words, and people long after they are gone? We drag them with us, exhausting ourselves with burdens that are no longer real. To let go is to set them down. To let go is to walk lighter. Letting go does not mean indifference. It does not mean that the day did not matter. On the contrary, it means we respect the day enough to let it end. It means we trust that tomorrow will bring new opportunities and that carrying yesterday's burdens into the night only blinds us to the gifts of the present. In the teachings of the Buddha, impermanence, anicca, is a central truth. Nothing lasts. The flower blooms and fades. The seasons turn. The body grows and eventually returns to the earth. The same is true of our thoughts and emotions. Anger rises and falls. Joy sparkles and fades. Regret may visit, but it too will pass if we allow it. Holding on to these passing states is like refusing to exhale. Imagine breathing in deeply and never letting the air go. The lungs would ache, the body would suffer, the life force itself would be blocked. Letting go is the exhale of the soul. And yet, many of us resist it. Why? Because holding on gives us the illusion of control. If we keep replaying the argument, maybe we will finally win it in our minds. If we cling to the regret, maybe we will prevent ourselves from repeating it. But life does not work that way. The only true control we have is in this very moment. How we respond, how we breathe, how we choose to meet the world as it is. There is a story from the Buddha's life that illustrates this beautifully. One day, a man approached the Buddha, furious, and began shouting insults at him. The Buddha listened quietly, his face calm. When the man finally paused to catch his breath, the Buddha asked, "If a person offers a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "It belongs to the one who offered it." The Buddha smiled and said, "So too with your anger. I do not accept it and it remains with you." This is the essence of letting go. We cannot stop others from offering us anger, criticism, or negativity, but we can choose not to accept it. We can let it pass by like a leaf floating down the river. In the same way, we cannot change what happened today. We cannot rewrite the words we spoke or the choices we made, but we can choose not to carry them further. We can set them down. Let me tell you about an elderly woman I once knew. Every evening she would sit on her porch as the sun went down. She had lived through much. The death of her husband, the struggles of raising children alone, years of financial hardship. But when asked about her life, she would smile and say, "Every night I empty my basket. I thank the day for what it gave me and I leave the rest outside the door. I never carry it to bed." She lived with a lightness that astonished everyone around her. Her secret was not that her life was easy, but that she refused to let her burdens follow her into the night. We can all learn from her. Each evening offers us a choice: to drag the day with us, heavy and unyielding, or to set it down gently, trusting that life continues to flow. Letting go is also an act of compassion toward ourselves. Too often we punish ourselves for not being perfect. We replay our missteps as if punishment will somehow make us better. But harshness only hardens the heart. Compassion softens it. To say, "I let go of what I cannot change," is to forgive yourself for being human. It is to recognize that mistakes are not chains but teachers. And like any good teacher, once the lesson is learned, you thank them and let them go. The Dhammapada, a collection of the Buddha's verses, says, "Drop by drop the water pot is filled. Likewise, the wise person, gathering little by little, fills themselves with good." Letting go of one regret tonight may feel small, but it is a drop of wisdom. Night after night, those drops become peace. As you lie down tonight, try this. Place one hand on your heart. Take a deep breath. Say softly, "I let go of what I cannot change." Feel the warmth of your own palm. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. With every exhale, imagine releasing one burden, one regret, one thought that no longer serves you. Watch them drift away like clouds across the evening sky. You may need to do this again tomorrow and the day after. That is okay. Letting go is not a single act but a lifelong practice. It is a habit of the heart. Each time you release, you strengthen the muscle of peace. Remember, too, that letting go is not just about the past. It is also about expectations of the future. How often do we lie awake at night worrying about what tomorrow will bring? But tomorrow is not here yet. Worrying is like carrying an umbrella every day in fear of rain. It does not stop the storm, it only burdens the journey. The Buddha taught, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment." Tonight, the present moment is your pillow, your breath, your heart beating steadily in your chest. That is all you need. I once heard a teacher compare letting go to holding a handful of sand. Clench your fist tightly and the sand slips through your fingers. Open your hand gently and the sand remains. Life is the same. Hold too tightly and you lose it. Relax your grip and you can actually appreciate what is there. So, as you rest tonight, ask yourself gently, what am I still carrying that no longer belongs to me? Is it a harsh word someone spoke today? Is it an old memory that brings me pain? Is it regret for something I cannot undo? Then breathe deeply, and with compassion let it go. Not because it never mattered, but because it no longer serves you. Peace is not found by changing the past. It is found by releasing it. And the more we release, the more space we create for rest, for healing, for tomorrow's possibilities. So whisper again like a prayer, "I let go of what I cannot change." Feel the truth of it settle in your bones. Let it carry you into the night, light and unburdened. And may your sleep be deep, your heart soft, and your spirit free. Affirmation 2. I forgive myself and others. Unforgiveness is one of the heaviest burdens a human being can carry. It's a strange kind of weight, one that sits not on your shoulders but deep in your chest, pressing down on your breath and hardening the heart. We often imagine that by refusing to forgive, we are holding someone else accountable, keeping them tethered to their actions. Yet the truth is far different. When we withhold forgiveness, it is we ourselves who remain chained. The bitterness lives in our own bodies, the anger circulates in our own blood, and the sorrow shadows our own nights. The Buddha compared it to holding a burning coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. While you wait for the chance to strike, your own skin is being scorched. Or he described it as drinking poison, expecting the other person to fall ill. These are not poetic exaggeration, they are simple truths of the mind. The longer we carry resentment, the more it eats away at us from within. Forgiveness, then, is not about declaring someone else's actions acceptable. It is not about erasing history or pretending that the pain was never real. Forgiveness is about freedom. It is the choice to stop carrying a burden that is wounding us daily. It is the refusal to let the past continue shaping the present moment. When I speak to people who struggle with forgiveness, one of the most common phrases I hear is, "But they don't deserve it." And my answer is always the same: perhaps not. But you deserve peace. You deserve to sleep without the weight of anger pressing on your heart. You deserve mornings that begin without bitterness lingering on your tongue. Forgiveness is not something you do for the other person. It is something you do for your own liberation. There is a story from the Zen tradition of a young monk who was insulted harshly by a traveler. The traveler shouted and spat, his face red with rage. The monk remained silent and calm. Later, another man asked why he had not responded in anger. The monk smiled gently and said, "If someone offers me a gift and I do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" Anger is exactly that, a gift we never have to take. And so it is with forgiveness. To forgive is to refuse to keep accepting the unwanted gift of bitterness. You do not need to hold it, examine it, replay it in your mind 1,000 times. You can leave it unopened. You can walk away lighter. But forgiveness is not only outward, it is also inward. For some, forgiving themselves is far harder than forgiving others. Perhaps you replay mistakes from years ago, reliving a sharp word spoken in anger, a choice you regret, a path you wish you had walked differently. The mind replays these moments like a broken record, as if by rehearsing them enough times you could rewrite history. But you cannot. The past is a door forever closed. What you can do is release the grip it has on you. The Buddha himself struggled for years before his awakening. He tried extreme fasting, nearly starving himself to death. He pushed his body to its limit in search of enlightenment. Eventually, he realized the futility of such extremes. Did he condemn himself for those years of misdirection? No. He learned from them. He forgave himself for his errors and took the middle way. And it was on that path that he found awakening. Mistakes are not the end of our journey. They are the stepping stones that shape the path beneath our feet. I recall an elderly woman who came to a temple carrying decades of bitterness toward her family. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "They wronged me. They never apologized. Why should I forgive?" The monk listening to her placed a heavy stone in her hands. "Carry this with you," he said. "Keep it with you day and night." She frowned. "But it is too heavy." The monk nodded. "So is your anger. You cannot hold it forever without it breaking you." In tears, she understood. Forgiveness was not for those who wronged her, it was for her own heart. In the practice of forgiveness, we begin simply. Place your hand gently over your heart. Feel its steady rhythm. Whisper to yourself, "I release blame. I release regret. I forgive myself. I forgive them." Do not rush. Say it as many times as needed. At first, it may feel hollow, as if your mind protests. That is normal. Forgiveness is not a single act but a practice, something watered day by day until it grows roots within you. There is also the story of Angulimala, the feared bandit who killed countless travelers, stringing their fingers into a grisly necklace. When he met the Buddha, he expected judgment or violence. Instead, the Buddha met him with compassion. The encounter changed Angulimala's life. He laid down his weapons, entered the monastic life, and eventually found peace. If a murderer could be forgiven and transformed, who among us is beyond redemption? The lesson is clear. Forgiveness is always possible, both given and received. At night when we close our eyes, unforgiveness steals our rest. The mind replays arguments, reimagines confrontations, and fuels itself on anger. But when we forgive, the body softens. The heart slows. The mind is free to sink into stillness. Forgiveness is not just moral, it is deeply practical. It brings health to the body and rest to the spirit. Science now even confirms what the Dharma has taught for centuries. Forgiveness lowers blood pressure, reduces stress hormones, and lengthens life. Compassion is not only good for the soul, it is medicine for the body. The lesson from all these stories is one: resentment is heavy, forgiveness is light. Resentment is poison, forgiveness is medicine. Resentment chains you to the past, forgiveness frees you for the present. So tonight, imagine placing the coals you have been carrying down on the ground. Imagine laying them gently at the edge of a river and watching the current take them away. Imagine refusing the gift of anger, setting aside the heavy stone, releasing the poison you no longer need to drink. Whisper softly, "I forgive, I free myself." Feel how the heart expands with every exhale. Feel how the body grows lighter. And as forgiveness spreads through you, notice how sleep comes more easily, like a blessing offered by the universe itself. Because forgiveness, in its deepest sense, is not only an act of letting go, it is an act of love. Love for yourself, for your own well-being, for the peace you deserve. And love, even for those who harmed you, in the sense that you refuse to let hatred continue its cycle. The Buddha taught that hatred never ends by hatred, but only by love. Forgiveness is the living embodiment of that truth. Affirmation 3. I am grateful for this day, no matter how imperfect. Gratitude is not about pretending life is perfect. It is not about shutting our eyes to pain or forcing a smile when the heart is heavy. True gratitude, in the Buddhist sense, is about opening the heart to life exactly as it is, and still finding beauty there. It is about noticing the jewels that are hidden even on difficult days. Gratitude, when practiced deeply, becomes not just a polite gesture, but a way of seeing the world, a lens through which we begin to understand the richness of life. Every day carries hardship. There are disagreements, aches in the body, unexpected losses, disappointments that sting. But alongside these, every day also carries blessings, sometimes obvious, sometimes so subtle we overlook them. The challenge is that our minds, conditioned by habit and survival, often focus on what went wrong. We replay conversations we regret. We notice the one thing that failed instead of the many things that quietly worked. We dwell on the imperfections. Gratitude is the practice that reorients the mind. It shifts our focus. It reminds us that even in imperfection, there is still something worth honoring. Think of an ordinary day. Perhaps you woke up feeling tired, dragging yourself out of bed. Maybe traffic was heavy, or your work felt unappreciated. Perhaps someone's words cut you more deeply than you wanted to admit. And yet, woven through that same day, there were other threads. Maybe the morning air was crisp and cool, a small gift to your lungs. Maybe a neighbor waved. Maybe your child laughed. Maybe your pet sat quietly beside you, a silent companion asking for nothing but presence. These moments are so easily forgotten, overshadowed by louder difficulties. But gratitude asks us to pause, to notice, to gather these moments like wildflowers. Alone, each may seem small. Together, they form a bouquet that can change how we see our day and even how we sleep at night. The Buddha once told a story of a farmer who came to him, overwhelmed by his problems. The farmer spoke of failing crops, disobedient children, sickness in his animals, constant worries about the future. He pleaded for the Buddha to solve these problems. The Buddha listened patiently, then replied, "Every person has 83 problems. Solve one and another will arise. But there is an 84th problem, and that is believing you should not have any problems at all." The farmer was taken aback. What did the Buddha mean? He meant this: suffering is woven into life. Struggle is not a mistake, it is part of the fabric of existence. The real suffering comes when we expect otherwise, when we cling to the fantasy of a life free of hardship. Gratitude dissolves the 84th problem. It does not erase difficulties, but it softens our relationship to them. It allows us to say, "Yes, this day was hard, but it also gave me enough. And for that, I am thankful." Modern psychology echoes this truth. Studies show that people who practice gratitude, who simply take time each day to name what they are thankful for, sleep better, feel less anxious, and report more satisfaction in life. It is not that their circumstances magically improve. It is that gratitude reshapes the mind. It pulls us out of cycles of worry and comparison. It interrupts the habit of focusing only on what is missing. Gratitude trains the heart to notice what is already here. I once knew an elderly woman named Margaret who had lived through war, the loss of her husband, and the struggles of raising children alone. She told me that for many years, bitterness had been her nightly companion. "I would lie in bed and think of everything unfair," she said. Every cruelty, every disappointment, every time life had taken more than it gave, and sleep rarely came. But in her 60s, after hearing a sermon on gratitude, she decided to try something different. Every night before bed, she would name 3 things she was thankful for. At first, she struggled. Some nights she could only write, "I am alive, I ate today, the sun set." But over time, her list grew richer. She began to notice the smile of a grandchild, the way music lifted her heart, even the lessons she learned from past mistakes. "It did not change my past," she told me, "but it changed how the past lived inside me. I stopped being haunted. I started being held." This is the quiet power of gratitude. It does not deny pain, but it prevents pain from being the whole story. There is another story told of 2 travelers crossing a desert. One, bitter and resentful, grumbled the entire way about the heat, the dryness, the endless sand. The other, though equally weary, paused now and then to marvel at the colors of the sky, to taste the sweetness of the water they carried, to laugh at the play of shadows on the dunes. Both walked the same path. Both endured the same hardship, but one was sustained by gratitude, while the other was drained by resentment. The lesson is clear. Gratitude does not change the desert, but it changes the traveler. Buddhist teachers often speak of beginner's mind, the practice of seeing the world with fresh eyes. Gratitude is a form of this. When you eat instead of rushing through a meal, you can pause to thank the countless hands that made it possible: the farmer, the rain, the sun, the grocer, the cook. When you breathe, you can notice that the very air filling your lungs is a gift from the trees, from the earth itself. Gratitude restores wonder. It reminds us that life is not ordinary, that every moment is sustained by countless unseen miracles. There is a teaching from Thich Nh letter 1ea5t H letter 1ea1nh about washing dishes. He said, "To wash dishes is not just to clean. It is to be fully alive in the moment of washing. If you wash the dishes only to have them clean, you miss the wonder of water, the sparkle of bubbles, the feeling of your hands touching the earth's elements." Gratitude transforms even chores into prayer. It is not just about what you are thankful for, but how you live that thankfulness in each act. And so, as you prepare for rest tonight, gratitude can become your companion. Try this. Lie down, place your hand on your heart, and let your breath slow. Whisper softly, "This day gave me enough." Then recall 3 moments of gratitude. They do not need to be grand. Perhaps it was the comfort of coffee in the morning, the relief of sitting down after standing too long, or the simple fact that your heart has beaten faithfully all day without your asking. Let these thoughts be the last you carry before sleep. Notice how the body softens when the heart remembers what is good. The Dalai Lama once said, "When you practice gratitude, there is a sense of respect toward others. When you practice gratitude, you recognize the interconnectedness of life. This interconnectedness is the essence of Buddhist compassion. Gratitude widens the heart, making room not only for joy but for others. When you are grateful, you are less likely to envy. You are less likely to hold resentment. Gratitude dissolves barriers. It makes us gentler with one another because we remember that we are all recipients of life's fragile, fleeting gifts. Even in suffering, gratitude has a place. There is a saying in Zen, "The obstacle is the path." The challenges we face, though unwelcome, can still be teachers. A broken relationship can teach us the value of kindness. Illness can teach us to appreciate the moments of health we once took for granted. Aging can teach us the preciousness of time. Gratitude does not glorify suffering, but it refuses to let suffering be wasted. It sees in every trial a chance to learn, to deepen, to awaken. So tonight, as you whisper, "I am grateful for this day, no matter how imperfect," know that you are joining countless others across time who have chosen gratitude as their refuge. Monks in temples, mothers in kitchens, workers returning weary from their labor, all pausing, even briefly, to notice the gifts that remain. Gratitude is a thread that binds us, across generations, across cultures, across every imperfection of life. And perhaps when you awaken tomorrow, gratitude will meet you again at dawn. Affirmation 4. I choose peace over worry. Worry is one of the most stubborn habits of the human mind. It creeps in quietly, often disguised as responsibility or caution, and convinces us that by rehearsing the worst, by imagining every possible failure or danger, we are somehow protecting ourselves. It feels like action, when in truth it is only agitation. Worry does not solve tomorrow's problems. It only robs today of its strength. It is like pouring water into a leaking bucket, endless and unsatisfying, until we are too weary to hold it any longer. The Buddha once compared the restless mind to a monkey, leaping from branch to branch, unable to sit still. Worry is that monkey's favorite game, swinging endlessly from what if to what then to what next. But beneath all the swinging is fear, the fear of not knowing, the fear of not being in control, the fear of suffering that has not yet arrived. And the irony, of course, is that worry makes us suffer before anything has even happened. There is a story told in the Zen tradition of a disciple who asked his master how to still the waves of thought. The master brought him to a pond and told him simply, "Do not stir the water." The disciple sat puzzled, waiting for a technique, a mantra, some great mystical secret. But the lesson was clear. The water becomes clear when left alone. So too does the mind. Worry is the stirring. Peace is the stillness. I once knew a woman named Karen, a mother of 3 who carried worry like an anchor. Her children were healthy, but she worried they might fall ill. Her husband was kind, but she worried he might someday leave her. Her home was modest but safe, yet she worried she might lose it. She confessed one evening, "I lie in bed with my eyes closed, but my heart races as if I'm running. Every thought becomes a shadow of disaster." What began to change her life was not a dramatic event, but a quiet shift in perspective. She began to practice what she called her peace breath. Each night, as she lay in bed, she inhaled and thought, "Peace enters me." As she exhaled, she whispered, "Worry leaves me." Slowly, her body softened. Night after night, this became her ritual. Her life did not magically lose its challenges, but her relationship to them transformed. She discovered that peace is not the absence of uncertainty. Peace is choosing not to be devoured by it. This choice is at the heart of Buddhist teaching. Life is uncertain. The Buddha named this truth impermanence, anicca. Everything changes. Jobs are lost. Relationships shift, health falters, seasons turn. Worry tries to resist impermanence by demanding guarantees, but life offers no guarantees, only moments. To choose peace over worry is to choose to live in this moment, not in the imagined disasters of tomorrow. There is a well-known parable about a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors rushed to him saying, "What terrible luck!" The farmer replied, "Perhaps." The next day the horse returned, bringing 2 wild horses with it. "What wonderful luck!" cried the neighbors. Again the farmer said, "Perhaps." The day after, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses, was thrown and broke his leg. "What terrible luck," they said. "Perhaps," answered the farmer. A week later, soldiers came to conscript young men for war. The son, with his broken leg, was left behind. "What wonderful luck!" the neighbors shouted. The farmer once more said, "Perhaps." The wisdom of this story is that life cannot be judged so quickly, nor can it be controlled by our fretting. What seems disastrous may later be a blessing. What seems perfect may contain seeds of hardship. Worry insists on labeling everything as tragedy or triumph. Peace waits and watches, knowing that the story is always unfolding. When we choose peace over worry, we do not deny that problems exist. We simply refuse to live them twice, once in our imagination and again in reality. The Buddha said, "An untrained mind causes suffering twice, once by the wound itself and once by the fear of the wound." Imagine being shot by an arrow. Painful, yes, but worry is like grabbing the arrow again and stabbing yourself a second time. We cannot avoid the first arrow. Life will always bring its share of pain. But the second arrow, the endless replay of fear, the sleepless nights, the clenched jaw and restless heart, that is optional, that is worry, and that is what we can choose to put down. I think of a story from my own life, sitting with a friend awaiting the results of her medical tests. She was pale with fear, her mind circling endlessly with worst-case scenarios. But instead of giving in to panic, she lit a candle, sat in silence, and repeated softly, "Peace is here." She said to me, "Worry won't change the results, but peace will help me face them." The next day, her diagnosis was difficult, but she met it with a strength that worry could never have given her. Her calm became a gift, not only to herself but to her family, who found courage in her stillness. Neuroscience today affirms what Buddhist wisdom has taught for centuries. Worry activates the body's stress response. The heart races, the breath shortens, the muscles tense. The mind replays fearful thoughts like a broken record. But practices of mindfulness, breathing deeply, repeating calming affirmations, releasing unnecessary thoughts, actually shift the brain into a state of rest. The body follows the mind. When the mind releases its grip on worry, the nervous system calms, sleep deepens, healing begins. There is another parable of the Buddha that illustrates this. A man came to him, tormented by endless fears. He worried about losing his wealth, his family, his health, his very life. The Buddha handed him a cup of water and told him to stir it with a stick. The man stirred until the water grew cloudy. Then the Buddha asked him to look inside. "Can you see your reflection?" The man shook his head. "Now leave the cup alone," said the Buddha. After a while, the water settled and the man could see his face reflected clearly. "This," the Buddha said, "is your mind when it is left in peace." Worry is like stirring the water again and again, even when clarity is all we long for. Peace is the trust to set the stick down. In the Christian tradition, there is also a teaching. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Wisdom traditions across the world converge on this same truth. Life is lived in this breath, this moment, this step. Worry lives in the imaginary future. Peace lives here and now. When we practice choosing peace, we cultivate a strength that is not brittle like worry but supple like bamboo. Worry tries to resist the storm by standing rigid, and so it breaks. Peace bends, lows, yields, and therefore endures. So tonight, as you prepare for rest, notice when worry approaches like an unwelcome guest. Do not invite it in for tea. Do not let it speak until dawn. Instead, greet it with kindness and say, "Not now, tonight I choose peace." Place your hand over your heart. Breathe in and say silently, "Peace enters me." Breathe out and whisper, "Worry leaves me." Do this again and again. Feel your body soften. Feel your mind grow clear, like the pond when it is undisturbed. Peace does not mean the absence of problems. It means that problems no longer own you. Peace is not naive. It knows life can be difficult, but peace trusts that whatever arises, you can meet it best not through frantic worry, but through steady calm. The Dalai Lama once said, "If a problem can be solved, why worry? If it cannot, why worry?" These words hold a gentle smile inside them. Life is uncertain, yes, but peace is always possible because peace is not in the world outside, it is in the way we meet the world. And so tonight, whisper softly, "I choose peace over worry." Let these words sink deep. Let them cradle you like a lullaby. Let them remind you that even in uncertainty, even in imperfection, you are not powerless. You can choose. You can choose stillness over storms, clarity over chaos, peace over worry. And when tomorrow comes, you will rise with the strength of that choice. Affirmation 5. I rest knowing I already have enough. Rest does not come only when the body is tired. Rest comes when the heart is willing to be still, when the mind loosens its grip on craving. We live in a restless age where every message tells us we are incomplete. Advertisements whisper that happiness lies in the next purchase, the next trip, the next achievement. Social media floods us with images of other people's lives, edited and polished, until we believe that joy belongs to everyone else but us. In such a world, it is no wonder so many collapse into bed with a heavy chest, unable to rest, even when exhausted. Buddhism teaches us that craving, or tanha, is the root of suffering. Craving is not merely desire. It is desire inflamed by the illusion that peace will only come once the desire is satisfied. But this promise is false. For once one craving is fulfilled, another rises in its place. Like drinking salt water, craving never quenches our thirst. It only deepens it, and so we run endlessly like hamsters on a wheel, tired but unable to stop, chasing a horizon that always moves further away. Contentment, by contrast, is a still pond. It does not deny the reality of longing, but it recognizes the futility of endless grasping. Contentment whispers a gentler truth. You already have enough. Enough to breathe, enough to rest, enough to live this moment fully. The Buddha once said, health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, faithfulness the best relationship. To rest in enoughness is to discover a form of wealth that no one can steal. There is a story from the Zen tradition of a wandering monk who carried nothing but a begging bowl. A wealthy merchant once mocked him, saying, "How can you be happy with nothing?" The monk lifted his bowl and smiled. "This bowl may be empty, but my heart is full." The merchant laughed, thinking the monk was a fool. But that night, as the merchant tossed and turned, worrying about thieves, debts, and rivalries, he envied the monk who slept peacefully under the open sky. The emptiness of the monk's bowl revealed the fullness of his freedom. So often, we confuse fullness with accumulation. We think that to rest means to finally reach the end of striving, to finally have more than enough. But life itself shows us otherwise. The man who gains wealth fears losing it. The woman who becomes admired fears fading from view. The person who finally achieves their dream lies awake, already anxious about the next dream. Rest is not found in the outer world of possessions and praise. Rest is found in the inner world of sufficiency. One evening, the Buddha told a parable about a man who received a fine silk robe. At first, it delighted him. He wore it proudly. But soon he feared it would be stolen, so he hid it. Then he worried it might be eaten by moths, so he inspected it constantly. He even began to dream that enemies would come for it. The robe, which had once brought him pleasure, became a source of suffering. The Buddha explained that this is the nature of attachment. The more tightly we cling, the more tightly suffering clings to us. To know you already have enough is to free yourself from being owned by what you own. True rest begins when we stop stirring the waters of craving. It begins when we stop asking, what's next? What's missing? What do I lack? And instead ask, what is already here? What is already enough? Think of the breath. With each inhale, life is given. With each exhale, life is sustained. The breath comes freely without our earning it, without our buying it. If we can rest in the miracle of breathing, we already have a reason to feel full. I remember a woman I once met in New York City. She lived in a small, cluttered apartment, barely enough space for a bed and a chair. By outward standards, she had little, yet she radiated joy. Her friends, many of whom had larger apartments and better-paying jobs, teased her for not upgrading her lifestyle. But she once told me, "I sleep better than they do. They spend their nights worrying how to keep what they have or how to get what they don't. My home may be small, but my rest is vast." That was her wisdom, fullness of being mattered more than fullness of things. As you lie in bed tonight, try placing your hands gently on your chest or by your sides. Whisper softly, "I am safe, I am whole, I have enough." Imagine the words soaking into you like rain into soil. Visualize yourself wrapped in soft light, as though the universe itself were holding you like a beloved child. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to chase anything. You are already embraced by existence itself. The great Zen poet Ryokan once wrote, "The thief left it behind, the moon at the window." He had been robbed of his few possessions, but when he looked up, the moonlight was still there, freely shining, untouched. He realized he had lost nothing essential. The moonlight was enough. The air was enough. The night itself was enough. Rest found him not because he had possessions, but because he had presence. Modern psychology affirms what Buddhist practice has long taught. Studies show that gratitude reduces anxiety and deepens sleep. People who practice recalling small blessings each day, 3 simple things like the smile of a stranger, the warmth of a meal, or the sound of laughter, report greater rest and lower stress. It is not the size of the blessings that matters, but the lens through which we see them. Gratitude shifts the restless not enough into the peaceful this is enough. Science in this way simply echoes the Dharma. The Buddha once encountered a poor farmer who was furious about his many problems. "My crops fail, my children are disobedient, my back aches. Why is life unfair to me?" The Buddha told him, "Every person has 83 problems. Solve one, another will arise. But the 84th problem is believing you should not have any problems." Contentment dissolves that 84th problem. It does not erase hardship, but it changes our relationship to it. Gratitude and sufficiency allow us to rest, even when the day is not perfect. How many of us stay awake at night replaying the problems of the day, waiting until every issue is resolved before we permit ourselves peace? But if peace depends on perfection, it will never arrive. Rest begins not when problems disappear, but when we recognize that we can still breathe, still smile, still rest, even in their presence. Tonight before sleep, imagine setting all your cravings into a basket by the bed. The desire for more money, more love, more recognition, set them down gently. You do not need to throw them away. Simply give them permission to rest too. In the morning, you may pick them up again if you wish. But for tonight, whisper, "I am safe, I am whole, I have enough." Feel the bed beneath you not as a prison of worry, but as a raft carrying you across the waters of craving into the stillness of peace. The teaching is simple, but it is not always easy. The world will continue to tell you that you are lacking, but tonight you have a choice. You can choose to listen to another voice, the voice of enoughness, the voice of contentment, the voice that says, "Rest is possible now." You do not need to wait until you become more. You are already whole, so let your breath be steady. Let your body grow heavy with ease. Let your heart whisper softly, "I rest knowing I already have enough." And in that whisper lies the fullness of life, the peace of presence, the freedom of being. As the night settles and silence begins to gather, we return to the truths we have walked through together. To let go of what we cannot change, to forgive both ourselves and others, to remain grateful even for a day that was imperfect, to choose peace instead of worry, and to rest in the fullness of knowing we already have enough. These are not just affirmations to repeat mechanically. They are gentle companions that guide us across the threshold from noise to stillness. They are like lanterns placed along the path, reminding us that every ending carries within it the seed of renewal. So now, as you close your eyes, allow the day to dissolve like mist touched by the morning sun. Feel your body soften into the comfort of your bed, and let your breath move slowly and steadily, like waves returning to the shore. Peace is not something distant, not something you must wait for the world to give you. It is something you create quietly, word by word, breath by breath, choice by choice. And if tomorrow unfolds with its share of imperfections, let it be. The practice is not about perfection. It is about returning. Each evening we return to release, to forgiveness, to gratitude, to peace, to the deep recognition that what we already hold is enough. May this evening bring you tranquility. May your rest be deep, and may you wake renewed, with a heart at peace and a spirit unshaken. If these words have touched something within you, if you feel lighter for having listened, I invite you to share your reflection below. Let this become not just a video you watched, but a conversation we build together. Like this offering so that others may find their way to it, and subscribe so that you may continue to walk with us on this path of wisdom and compassion. For tonight's message is not only mine to give, it is ours to carry forward, a reminder that peace is never far away. It is always waiting for us to return.